Do you have a broken or burst outdoor water hose tap that needs to be repaired or replaced? If so, it's a very easy fix, and I'll show you the steps to complete this in this video. My name is Wes, and thanks so much for tuning in. If you have a busted outdoor water hose spigot that needs to be replaced, doing it yourself will definitely save you a bunch of money without having to hire a plumber, and it's super doable. I was able to find all the parts and tools that I needed through a website called plumbingsale.com. And although you can pick these types of parts up at your local hardware store, it was super convenient to have everything shipped directly to my front door. But real quick, we'll go over the essential tools and supply list for this type of install. First off, you're going to need a PEX crimper tool. This is a 1/2 inch or a 3/4 inch. And this particular kit also came with the E-Field cutting tool. This is made for cutting up to 3/4 inch PEX, but what we're using here in this video is going to be 1/2 inch. So we picked up a pack of 1/2 inch copper rings to accompany our 1/2 inch PEX pipe. And we're also going to need a crimp ring remover tool, just in case you need to remove an old ring or if you miscrimp one and need to fix that. For my project, I only need to add one additional elbow to complete the plumbing on the inside, which I'll show you shortly. But here is the 12-inch frost-resistant water spigot. It's also called a silcock, and this is what we're going to be using to replace our old one. But do keep in mind that there are different ends on here. This was for a 1/2 inch. Make sure before you order that yours isn't a 3/4 inch. And to get this project started, make sure that you shut off the main water supply to your house. That way when you cut this pipe, water isn't going to come blasting out at you. Another thing I like to do is go ahead and shut off the power to my hot water heater just to be safe. After you've done that, open up a couple of sinks in the house and open them up all the way just to help drain all the water out of the line. And so in order to replace a water spout, we're going to have to remove one. So you can see my broken one here, and it's got the 1/2 inch PEX connected to that. We're going to have to cut into that in order to free up the water spigot to get it out. And even though I did drain the lines, you'll see here that I had quite a bit of water that was still coming through. So it's going to be helpful to have a bucket in place, maybe a shop vac handy, just because there is going to be quite a bit of water still in the lines. I think this thing dripped almost the whole time that I was doing the project. And my water hose tap is connected directly into the foundation, so it was just held in place by these two masonry screws. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those out in order to free it up so we can hopefully pull it through the wall and get it replaced. Except when I went to pull it through, I could feel that there was some kind of resistance, like it wasn't wanting to come through all the way. So I'm guessing that there's a fitting on the other side that we need to jump back in there and remove to pull it through the wall. But this was a good time to show you how to use the crimp ring remover tool. Just cut the pipe flush up against the brass fitting and then slip this crimp ring remover tool into the fitting and then put some heavy pressure on it. It's not really going to affect the brass fitting, not that it matters in this case because I'm replacing it, but you'll be able to slip the ring and that fitting off. And then even then, it looks like this still isn't coming through the wall. I do have some spray foam here, but even if I was to pull all that out, it's still not going to fit. So what's happened here is they've soldered this piece on during the install. So in order to get that removed, you're going to have to cut this pipe in half. I was able just to use a mini hacksaw and just cut right through it. If I knew that this was something I was going to be doing, I probably would have picked up a copper pipe cutter tool, something that was made for this. But again, a hacksaw cut right through it. Not a big issue. Once you got it where you need it, just wiggle it off and it'll separate. With that task complete, we're able to go ahead and push this through and pull it out on the crawl space side and make room for our new one. And what I'm just going to do is slide it into place and then use the old masonry screws to attach that back. And unfortunately in my situation this would have worked, but it was just a little loose. I didn't really like it and I didn't want to plumb it in that way. So I cut a scrap piece of wood and then cut a hole in it with a butterfly bit and then anchored that into the foundation in order to make it more secure. And then also once I slide this in, I can attach this securely to the wood and everything's going to be nice and tight. Nothing will be jiggling around. And that's very important because when we're working on the other side, when we're plumbing up to it, we don't want that whole thing to be moving around. We need it to be sitting tightly into place as much as possible. And now we're moving back into the crawl space so I can go ahead and get some of this old pipe trimmed up, a couple of these rings cut off so that I can plumb some new PEX into this fitting. And this is the point in the video where I have to reiterate that everybody's situation is going to be just a little bit different. Everyone's plumbing situation is going to vary, so you're really just going to have to kind of figure this part out on your own. But I'm going to show you here how to use the tools. Everything worked very easily. I could just slide the rings on and crimp them into place. I had to cut a couple of short pieces of 1/2 inch PEX to go ahead and get ready for my elbow. Again, this kind of takes a little bit of creativity and some just planning and thinking on your part. You can also, if you mess something up, you can cut these rings off.
you can go ahead and cut the PEX shorter, do anything you need to do. And what I'm doing here is just going to go ahead and test fit this part here before putting the ring on, just to make sure I'm happy with the way it fits. Since I'm happy with that, I'll pull it back off and then slide on a copper ring, get everything back into place here, and get everything set up and ready for crimping. It's really easy to do. Actually, I've never used one of these before making this video, and I didn't have to redo any of my crimps, knock on wood, hoping they all hold up. And you can also kind of halfway crimp it and then slide it into place if they're too loose, and then come back and do a full crimp. That worked really well for me. But the most important thing is to keep the crimp tool 90 degrees to the pipe, cut your pipe square as well, and then keep the rings just right there on the edge of the fitting. Don't scoot them right up against the fitting. It needs to grab a hold of the barbs nice and tightly. But you can see here, I've got my whole plumbing in place. It runs up into the 3/4 inch pipe, and now we've got to hook the water up back to the house and make sure that we don't have any leaks. So we're going to go ahead and test that now and make sure that we're good to go. And I'm happy to report that there are no leaks on the inside of the crawl space, so that's very good news. We'll go ahead and crack this open, get the air out of the lines, make sure everything's working properly. That last little bit of water that you see coming out once you turn that off is the 12 inches of this pipe, basically letting the water back out. That's what makes it frost resistant. But this project is complete. I think this is something that you could definitely do yourself.
And so there you have it. The project is complete. We saved ourselves a bunch of money, and it definitely wasn't that hard to do, but everyone's situation is going to be a little bit unique. You may have 1/2 inch PEX, you may have 3/4 inch PEX, you may have something completely different. So do understand that everyone's situation is going to vary slightly. And don't forget to head over to plumbingsale.com. Check them out. If you're setting up your next DIY project and you're looking to save yourself a bunch of money, they have all the tools and supplies that you'll need. But in the meanwhile, I really appreciate you for tuning in. Thanks for stopping by. I hope that you'll consider subscribing to the channel. If you have any questions or comments, definitely leave those down below. I try my best to get back to everybody. But until then, I'll catch you on the next video. All right, peace.